Morning at NTV. It's a conversation of rights today, of bravery, of courage, and not only that, of freedom fighters. Today we're celebrating the Archbishop Janan Luwum. May his risen eternal peace. He stood for the truth, and only the truth. He stood for that. Joining us in studio now, I still have today, I'm dealing with people fighting for rights. Yeah, I'm having Benjamin Katana, the lawyer from the NUP party and a legal practitioner in this country. Council, Happy New Year for starters. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Now, yesterday I saw the KCCA Councillors freed. But before we even get to that situation, this entire KCCA Councillors, especially those who are from NUP, some of them were your clients. What was the trigger of this arrest and all?
First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to all the viewers of NTV.
Yes.
My salutations to the soul of Archbishop Janan Luwum for speaking truth to power, for which he paid a very heavy price. We celebrate his heroism and courage. To give context to the issue of the councillors is that it followed very nasty confrontations between security forces
and their councillors,
KCCA on one side, and the street vendors or traders on the streets of Kampala. Following which, the council passed a resolution that the leaders should go to the areas where these people parade from, establish facts, upon which subsequent resolutions regarding the relations between KCCA, the authority, and the traders. And so while they were moving to those areas, because these are areas that were gazetted earlier in 2017 for street vendors to operate from. So they were arrested. They were arrested. Some of them were beaten, detained, arraigned in court, and subsequently remanded. And so efforts were put in place, and what you saw was a bail application, and a number of them have been released so far. Only 3 remain in custody. We are hoping that they will be freed on Thursday. I may not be at liberty to diverge into the merits and demerits of the case because it is before court, but to note with concern the extractive approach that KCCA has taken to deal with the issue of the street vendors. Because these are people that are working to feed their families and contribute to the economy. And KCCA has a duty not to stop them, but to regulate them.
And allocate
And I don't think
spaces.
there's any single vendor who has been given a permit by KCCA to operate. Yet that's what they are supposed
Ideally,
to
that
do.
should be done, yes.
But they have chosen to criminalize
the
working
business
and making a contribution to the economy. They have chosen to criminalize it and politicize it. And so the ugly confrontations that we see are as a result of that approach.
Okay. When we saw the confrontation, I saw a couple of them being beaten with bats on the heads and all that. Others being roughed up by police using excessive force. Now that you've said that a couple of them are out, are they going to court?
Well, that is one of the things that they are considering, especially those that were treated
unfairly,
in a manner that departs from what is prescribed under the law as a mode of effecting arrest, without even going into the details of whether the arrests were justified or not. But the manner in which it was conducted was clearly outside the principles of the law, and some of them are considering taking legal action against the enforcement agencies and the government of Uganda. But what should concern the people of Uganda more is the increasing reliance on excessive force by the institutions that are mandated to protect the people of Uganda. And so now we have the increasing and deliberate violation of human rights by these security agencies.
You've used the word deliberate. Council,
Yes.
what do you mean by that? That
Because
it's deliberate?
it has been systematic.
Oh,
it's not a one-off. Every time there has been any activity that involves political actors, especially who come from the side that opposes government, we have seen security agencies use excessive force. Even when there have not been any activities, we have seen security officers increasingly relying on excessive force and outright torture to deal with the opponents of the government, of the ruling party, not even the government, but the party in government. So which is very alarming, and I think it should be condemned by all Ugandans, regardless of where they belong politically, because once torture and violation of human rights become normal, then you do not know who will be the next victim.
Now that brings me to my question. Do we still trust the courts of justices?
Well, I think what we need to do is to look at the broad context
Which is?
of state institutions in this country, of which courts of law are part, that they are increasingly becoming too weak to serve the people of Uganda, but only strong enough to keep President Museveni in power.
So it has gone personal, in a way.
Because they have been politicized in many ways, through appointments and through influence peddling by those that control power. And you know, it comes with, when you have a leader or a group controlling the state for close to 40 years, it comes naturally.
Oh dear. Why has bail become such a contentious issue, and why is it hard to get bail in court-martial? I've seen a couple of Ugandans, when they're taken before the court-martial, you know, it is back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It never yields the way we expect it to happen.
Well, the first of all is to say that, first of all, the trial of civilians in the general court-martial itself is contentious. And the Constitutional Court of Uganda has pronounced itself on that matter,
yes.
to the effect that this, in essence, is supposed to be a disciplinary
committee for military men.
For military men. However, there's a pending appeal before the Supreme Court, and which the Supreme Court is yet to pronounce itself on. And so, alongside many other factors, what is very contentious is the independence of this particular institution, especially when dealing with people that belong to the opposition. Because first of all, our contention is that these people are not taken to the general court-martial for trial. But the general court-martial, just like many other institutions, is used as a tool to curtail opposition, to whip members of the opposition. And we have had so many go through that. But at the end of the day, even a trial is never pursued up to the end.
For some
people are remanded for a year or so. When they are granted bail, eventually, the trial stops there. You saw it even in the other time when Bobi Wine was arrested in Arua. We have seen Dr. Besigye go through the general court-martial. We have seen Honorable Kabazi Gurka and several other people. You remember the time when they arrested supporters of Dr. Besigye, the so-called PRA suspects. How did it end? You have seen a number of our supporters who were arrested during the campaign time, and even these who were arrested on the eve of the swearing-in of the current president. So, our contention is that this has departed from what it is supposed to serve, and is now being used as a tool to whip members of opposition into line.
So you feel the entire flow of the justice in this country, it is structured to suppress and oppress the opposition? Exactly.
The state institutions in this country have been reduced into tools of entrenching the regime in power. They are too weak to serve the people of Uganda, but just strong enough to keep the regime in power.
Now, why do you then keep appearing before court whose legitimacy is being challenged and is being run by non, lawyers or judges, but the invisible hand, like if you can call it that way?
Injustice is never fought by folding arms. The forces, what I would call forces of evil and forces of good, must keep interacting with each other. And the forces of good must work so hard to make sure that they overcome the forces of evil. That's how it plays out.
Okay.
When you look at, and what is happening in Uganda is not new. When you look at the history of justice, of fighting for justice, when you look at, for example, the civil rights movement in the US, the justice system was full of people that whose approach was not so different from the approach of the enforcement agencies and the approach of the politicians. But the civil rights movement never got tired of engaging these courts.
That's the good force.
They never, yes, the forces of good never got tired of engaging in all these avenues. All these are frontiers. Those who can go to court, they go to court. Those who can go to other institutions, local and international, they do so. Those who can go to the streets to exercise their right to protest, they do so. So we must engage the regime from all fronts.
Okay.
Whatever one feels and whatever they feel they should do, which is within the law, they should do so. And eventually, it will be overstretched.
Do you feel the security forces, especially the Uganda police to be exact, are they having sufficient training when it gets to issues of human rights and how they should protect and how they should operate when they're arresting, or even in, pressure moments or crisis moments of arrests and all? Do you think we have adequate models in the training that can, highlight more of the human rights?
Well, first of all, the problem is not the training, because majority of these people are aware.
Council, the problem is not the training.
It's not the training. Majority of them are aware that what they are doing is wrong.
But what than what?
The training in terms of human rights can be enhanced, but that's not where the problem is. The problem is on the orientation of the institution and the pertaining political environment, where the members of the security forces believe and behave as an extension of the political group in power.
So they're not professional?
Because of one or two reasons. One, how they are recruited, but because they are recruited as part of the bigger patronage system that sustains the regime in power. But two, it comes with rewards in terms of promotion, because when they are doing these things,
better?
Exactly. They will call it caddership. That one is a cadder. Why? Because he's very hard on members of the opposition. And so when you have such an environment, even if you train these people on the best models of human rights, on the best approaches on how to arrest, they will practice those best practices when they are dealing with other matters. But when it comes to dealing with matters that
of opposition,
that relate to anything that is perceived as a threat to the survival of the regime, then they will forget every rule in the book.
Oh God. So how do we fix this, Council?
I think, like I mentioned earlier, the only way we can fix this, there are two ways. One is for the head of state to reach his Damascus point. The other time I saw him on TV talking about human rights. Incidentally,
no one recently, must be beaten.
Recently, another, I think, Daily Monitor produced from history, when the then president of Uganda, Idi Amin, was also telling his security forces to stop beating people. But he was just saying it, not doing it, because exactly. So the president must stop just talking about it, but act upon it. Because just about 2 months ago, he was talking about human rights. Maybe it feel good and appear good.
But
after that,
I've seen some of those errant officers who have been put before the court martial.
Let me give you an example. Zibra Senyange was killed at the hands of security forces.
And the president affirmed to that.
Came on the national TV and confirmed. Have we seen any of the killers arraigned before court?
Is the story not found yet?
The other day, Bobby Wine was beaten in Arua, tortured. We all saw how he looked like. The president on TV said he had been beaten properly. So is that attitude, do you see that attitude as of a person interested in ending human rights violations? No. So one of the ways through which that can come to an end is when he meets his Damascus point and he stops being Saul and he becomes Paul. He turns away from his evil ways and he preaches and he acts upon, not only just preaching, he acts upon what he says, punishes those who do so, but and several other things. The other way is certainly for us to continue doing what we are doing and even do it better. Oppose anything that relates to injustice and fight against injustice. As a country. Today, both Archbishop Luwum, may his soul rest in peace, and Idi Amin Dada are dead. So rest in peace. May his soul rest in peace. We celebrate one for standing up for justice. What do we celebrate about the other in terms of justice? So I think this should be a moment of reflection on the leaders of Uganda, both in state institutions, but also other institutions like the church. They should take deep reflection and ask themselves if they are doing enough. The church. The church. That's a heavy. If they are doing enough to stop injustice. Because many times, instead of speaking what they should say, they go to fraternize and dine with those that are violating human rights. And I believe this should be a moment for them to reflect and moving forward, play their moral responsibility and speak against injustice. We are not asking them to join opposition because justice is not fighting for justice is not a preserve of the opposition. It's for everyone, yes. It's not a preserve of the church. It's not a preserve of anybody. It is a duty that we owe to ourselves and to the rest of humanity. Because, you know, like Martin Luther said, injustice against anybody is injustice against everyone. So we should never get tired of fighting for justice and fighting for what is right. And even our friends across the political divide in the NRM, they must stand up and tell their leaders that this is wrong. While we support you, you must stop torturing Ugandans. You must stop perpetuating injustice because they never know. You see, Andrew, and I'm not saying that you may be a supporter of NRM, but you're not sure that your son will... That's a very big if. Yes, you're not sure that your son or daughter or your sister will be a supporter of NRM. So would you want to see your sister being beaten on the streets for supporting another party? So I think that culture of using violence, of using force to get leverage over our opponents must stop, and we must, every Ugandan, wherever we are, we must work hard towards making sure that that culture is eliminated from our society.
Council, as we're finalizing this conversation, what could be your parting shots to Ugandans as they're reflecting today about all this and all that from the village level or from the household level? How deep should they reflect, especially when it gets to standing for what's right? Because wrong is wrong, regardless.
I think first of all is that we need to ingrain certain things as part of who we are, as part of our value system. We must tell our children, first of all, that injustice is wrong, that it's improper. If you have a child in the security forces and is involved in torturing of citizens, as a parent you have a duty. You have a duty to tell your child that that is wrong. But if you're also a parent and you're involved in torturing of citizens and fellow human beings, what lesson? It is not surprising when some of the children turn out to do that because they have seen their parents do it, and it has become normal. But beyond that is to, as a nation, appreciate that there are certain things that if allowed to get a place in our society, it will be very hard to eliminate them. And one of them is this continued use of violence and force to gain political leverage. It may temporarily serve you, but in the long run, it may even affect you as an individual. We have seen people who are part of this government when it came into power, but today they are on the other side. So the ones that are doing it now, they should also ask themselves, how sure are they that 20 years from now, they will be in government, where it is government, this government or another government. But even away from the politics, that the only way we resolve our misunderstandings and disputes is to torture, is to inflict pain and injury on the other. That is premedial. It shouldn't be happening in this generation, in this century. And to make matters worse for this country, the people doing that have been accorded the best training and education on the taxpayers' money, both here and abroad. So what, as a nation, why are we wasting this money training people who are turning into beasts? Are we training people to kill each other? Because when you are trained in the training should help them to kill the armed opponents. But you're here, you arrest someone because...
Even the law does not allow them to kill. You shoot to disable.
Yes, once they are in theater, the theater of war, gun, like what is happening in Congo now. But also, even war, there are rules that have been brought internationally. There are rules of engagement to tame the beastly nature that may crop up in the absence of rules. So all we are asking for is that let's learn to play by the rules. Let the security forces stop blackmailing Ugandans that, oh, I always see it, that you reward us by condemning us. No, we praise you when you do the right things, but we must condemn you when you do the wrong things. Because even enforcement of law is guided by the law. So it's not guided by what you think is right. If Chamagero goes on his Facebook page and abuses Katana, why should the Katana respond by cutting off Chamagero's ear?
Katana should go and find a legal redress.
File a case, let Chamagero be handled in accordance with the law. But because I have guns, because I have control over security forces, then I call them, they cut off your nose, but you have not cut off my nose. You have only abused me, maybe. But even as leaders, we must be able to know that we are not even monarchs.
I swear you're going.
Even monarchs world over. The progressive forces have tamed them. Today, they can be questioned.
That's true.
Unlike how it was in the 18th century, in the 17th century. Today, any monarch in the world can be questioned, can even be abused. Because, you have... We are not encouraging
abuse and misuse of freedom of speech.
We are not encouraging that. But if anybody crosses the line, let them be dealt with in accordance with the law. But not the premedial way of revenging. That, someone has abused me, I'll go and burn his heart.
This one is going to be an example.
That has no place in the modern world.
Well, there you have it. That is Council Benjamin Katana. He actually makes a point on a day when we're reflecting. The key takeaways from him is, can we reflect? Can the church use today to reflect? Are they still standing tall as Janan Loom stood? Are they standing for the truth? Are they standing for the people? Because Archbishop Janan Loom didn't do it for himself. He did it for the country. So that is the bigger good we're all looking at. We'll take a break for now and we'll return shortly. Good morning.